What's up, guys? Thank you again for joining me for bobKOTOR's Gaming News today. I'm not actually going to be doing news. There was really not a whole lot to talk about this week. I mean, aside from the YouTube content ID situation that's been going on for a lot of the bigger YouTube channels that have gameplay and things like that, it is definitely a worthy topic for news. So because of that, I'll be putting a link in the description below to an actual Kotaku article that goes pretty well in depth as far as what it is, why it's happening, so on and so forth. Beyond that, there wasn't really a whole lot. I mean, the Steam boxes finally shipped, so people have begun to receive those for the 300 beta testers, and nothing really else. I mean, Nintendo Direct was today, but I'm going to be talking about Nintendo in this video, so I'll be mentioning things from that also. So what I am going to be doing today instead of news is a couple weeks ago I'd said I was going to do a first impressions on my PS4. Perfectly honest, I haven't really played enough of my PS4 to warrant a legitimate first impressions. So instead, what I'm going to be doing is kind of like a overview of the current state of the gaming universe. So I'm going to be covering PlayStation, Microsoft, Nintendo, and PC. So again, this is going to be my opinion on basically the current state of all those different platforms, all in one video. So you'll be able to get the best of every world and kind of know that if you did want to jump into the next generation, what system or what platform you might want to get. So here we go. So first up for my platform overview, if you will, is going to be Sony and the PlayStation 4. Now, as I just said a moment ago, I haven't really been playing my PlayStation 4 a whole lot or just enough to warrant a legitimate first impressions video. So you can kind of throw this into that bag, I guess, as far as the first impressions go. The reason why I haven't been playing it a whole lot is there isn't really much to play. I've been mainly playing the two games I have, which are Killzone Shadowfall, as well as NBA 2K14. And the only other game I've been playing on the system is Warframe. Now, you do get two downloadable games with PlayStation Plus, which I do have. I purchased a full year on Black Friday, but even those, they're not necessarily my kind of game, if you will. So, I mean, there are a couple things to play, but even with that, the library is not exactly that impressive right now. The reason why I bought the PS4 initially, and I don't regret my purchase, don't get me wrong at all, is I wanted to make sure I could say I have one, because I don't want this to turn out kind of like the Nintendo Wii did when that first came out a few years ago, saying that it was pretty hard to find for about a year and a half to 2 years. Now, the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One are more or less universally sold out wherever you go to shop. So I wanted to make sure I got mine out of the way, got what games I did want for it as soon as possible. Now, I was there at the midnight release, really happy I bought it, so it's a great system. Again, I've been having a load of fun when I do play it, but obviously, just like with most any game, you play any game for a certain amount of time, it's going to get, you're going to be doing the same thing over and over again. It gets repetitive. So that's why I haven't been really playing it as much. I'm waiting for the Gaikai streaming service to finally come out. That's my biggest thing. If you aren't familiar with Gaikai, that's going to be the service that allows you to play older PlayStation titles, so PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, most likely PlayStation 3, streaming directly to the system. And that wasn't available at launch, which, perfectly honest, I didn't even realize it wasn't going to be available at launch. I assumed it wasn't, but I didn't realize they were planning on bringing it out sometime mid to late next year. So at that point, you're literally relying on the games that are coming out for it, which for me personally, there isn't really a whole lot right out of the gate. The ones that I'm looking at are obviously Destiny, The Division, Evil Within, The Order 1866. I think it's 1886. If it is, I'm sorry. But those are the games I'm looking into. Of course, there's also the new Uncharted that they announced, but there's literally no information on it. So the pickings are somewhat scarce at the moment, but I'm very interested to see what they do with PlayStation Plus, any downloadable titles, PlayStation Network exclusives, things like that. I'm probably making it sound a lot worse than it actually is. The games that are available for the PlayStation 4 are great. They're fun. They're awesome. But there just isn't really a whole lot to go around. The most common thing you're going to be able to get is either a sports game or a first-person shooter, which that's kind of the mantra of the previous generation also. But you're not going to find too much more until we get further into this generation, and that's probably the biggest thing PlayStation's suffering from right now. Beyond that, the streaming service through Twitch is awesome. The interface is a whole lot better than the PlayStation 3's. The controller, I love. The touchpad works really well when you need it to. The only certain games that have actually used it, like Killzone uses it, but NBA doesn't. Warframe also does have some use of it as well. So they do make use of the tools they have in front of them, but I'm looking to see what ways they increase the usability of not only the touchpad, but even just the share button. Because right now, obviously, you do the share button, you can get 15 minutes of footage, you can take a screenshot, you can start streaming on Twitch right away without even needing really to do anything. Unless you don't have an account, then you just have to do that first. But regardless, it's still very smooth sailing overall as far as the interface is concerned. But there are some other issues that need to be fixed, like for example the update that's going to be allowing people to actually get gameplay directly from the PlayStation 4 and be able to play it on your PC. Not the actual games, of course, but if people wanted to make footage for a YouTube channel, for example, you can connect your your game capture device to the PS4 and then record it on the game capture device, run it on the PC, edit it, so on and so forth. So that's how you're seeing certain people, or people want to be streaming to like twitch.tv straight from their computer, as opposed to needing to go through some backwards connectors and things like that, just making everything simple. But that's pretty much the gist of PlayStation right now. There's not a whole lot of games, but there will be, and it's just kind of sitting around waiting, really. But we already know they're on the horizon, unlike their other Japanese cohorts, who we don't really know what's on the horizon for them yet. So next up on my list is Microsoft with the Xbox One. Now, I'll be the first to say, again, I bought the PlayStation 4. I haven't bought an Xbox One yet. I do plan on buying one. But Xbox One and Microsoft definitely had the better launch lineup than PlayStation. With Killzone, Dead Rising, Rise, Son of Rome, Forza, everything you can think of from Microsoft, they came out of the gates running. Now, obviously, there was no Halo, there was no Gears of War, but you didn't really need them on the launch because the lineup that they already had was huge. Now, the Killer Instinct, in my opinion, is probably one of their biggest titles going. I've been keeping an eye on it, to say the least, as it looks to be gaining popularity in like the competitive fighting game scene, so on and so forth. So we're probably going to be seeing that at different fighting game tournaments and conventions, so on and so forth. But as far as everything else, the TV service, I think people are actually enjoying a lot more than they thought they would. I mean, if they're already going to be playing their Xbox One, why turn the thing off if you can just plug your cable box and do it and watch TV straight from it? And then the ability to snap on different features, so on and so forth, like whether it be TV to Netflix, Netflix to your game, game to music. All of the features are very well compounded in the device. It's a lot of a smoother interface than people originally thought it was going to be. But even so, Microsoft's almost suffering from the exact opposite of what PlayStation is. Aside from their third-party titles that are still coming, we don't really know what's upcoming as far as exclusives for the Xbox One, as opposed to PlayStation, who has both exclusives as well as third-party titles on the way. Microsoft obviously has Titanfall, which is going to be phenomenal, but beyond that, we know there's a Halo eventually. There's been no word on Gears of War, no real word on much anything else for exclusive titles, and PlayStation has a lot bigger lineup for like indie games and digital download games in comparison to Microsoft, who's more or less focusing on your $60 package. And one of the things that's plagued them recently, at least in the fans' eyes, is microtransactions. Now, for those of you who don't know what microtransactions are, those are basically in-game transactions that you mainly see on like phone games or mobile titles, things like that. They've started doing them in certain other games, but usually it's just like DLC. Like you buy it, you get a big piece of content, there you go. But now you're paying $60 for a game, more than half the game is blocked by either needing to play a substantial amount of gameplay, like needing to play 60 hours to unlock a really good item, or you can just pay, $2 or $3 and the item's yours forever. Some people that might be appealing. Other people who don't want to spend the microtransactions and actually have the time to play the games are obviously going to be turned off by this. Why is it that you're going to make the person play 60 hours of Forza 5 in order to unlock like a Ferrari when the guy next to him can pay $3 and get it? I mean, everybody can pay, that's not the problem. But it's just a matter of why include it in the $60 package. If Forza was free to play, similar to that of like Killer Instinct, that'd make more sense to me. If you're getting a game for free, playing it for couple weeks and then you unlock an item, that's cool, or you can just pay $2 because, you didn't pay for the game. But in this case, you already bought the game. Why do you need to pay for more things? It's kind of a scummy move, or at least I believe it is. Microsoft's gone out and said what they plan on doing with the microtransactions is kind of just getting the lay of the land. What people think about them, how they like them, how much they're used, and obviously with the complaints or feedback, if you will, that they've received for them, deciding whether or not or how they want to proceed with them in the future. Maybe not as much content locked behind the microtransactions, or maybe more content, or maybe what kind of content is locked by microtransactions compared to just normal progress in the game. Either way, it'll be very interesting. PlayStation hasn't really seen a whole lot of that. The only thing I've seen is actually in NBA, but even that, it's a lot of optional stuff, and getting the money or points to unlock the items in NBA, you can play just a couple games of basketball and have enough for a lot of the things that you'll want. So it's not really too much of an issue. But beyond that, again, Microsoft has a bright future ahead of it too, I think. I mean, Black Friday, they outsold PlayStation, but overall, their PlayStation and Microsoft are pretty neck and neck as far as sales go. I know PlayStation's ahead of total system sales, but I imagine by the time we get to the next generation of consoles, that lead will have changed hands about 15 times. But that's pretty much it for Microsoft. Again, they have a great lineup of games right now. Their future looks a bit uncertain, but the features of the system will probably keep it going. But again, I believe as far as total games coming out for systems, PlayStation will eventually inch them out as far as quality of games available, or just the amount of games available. But we'll see. Who knows? Microsoft might finally decide to let digital downloads of their old Xbox games and Xbox 360 games and things like that. But now, let's move on. And next up on my list, Nintendo. Now, I've already done a video on what I think of Nintendo and their current state previously. This, I guess, is just going to be a bit more of an update. The Wii U hasn't really increased its chances of being that much more relevant recently. Admittedly, there was a Nintendo Direct show today where they did show off a bunch of new games, but it's nothing that groundbreaking. I mean, for example, they had the official announcement of like Cranky Kong being in Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. Now, if you watched the VGXs, obviously you saw the official debut of him there, which, I mean, again, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze does look really fun for a Donkey Kong game. And again, that doesn't mean anything in a bad way. Just, I'm not sure how popular Donkey Kong will be nowadays. He'll be popular enough, but he's not really going to be a system seller anymore. System sellers include pretty much Mario, Metroid, Legend of Zelda, Smash Brothers, and Mario Kart. Mario's already out. Zelda, they came out with the Wind Waker HD. They did announce a new Legend of Zelda game on this Nintendo Direct, but it's made by Koei Tecmo, and it's actually a Dynasty Warriors spinoff. Now, that's what it very much seems like. It's called, the unofficial name is Hyrule Warriors, which it sounds pretty much exactly like it is. It's a Legend of Zelda game that's more or less Dynasty Warriors. They had about a 1.5-minute gameplay trailer, and that's what you saw Link running around doing, just running around hacking and slashing things, using all the different gadgets that you've seen him use, the bombs, the sword, shield, everything. I'll link the whole Nintendo Direct down there if you guys actually want to watch it. It's about 20 to 30 minutes long. They announced some new 3DS games, like a new Kirby game, or actually they showed off some more gameplay for the Kirby game, which I'm a huge Kirby fan, so I'm going to get that regardless. But they announced Dr. Luigi. They announced a Yoshi's Island DLC for Sonic Lost World. Now, they announced another game called the NES Remix. It's coming to eShop. It's out today for $15. Now, what this NES Remix is basically a bunch of older NES titles. Mainly, they show a lot of Donkey Kong and like Super Mario, like the really old versions. And it's a bunch of kind of like mini challenges that involve each of these games. But they even say it in the trailer for NES Remix that it's only small chunks of these games. So it's kind of like meeting me halfway with what I said before about Nintendo needing to use their past to kind of create their future. They made a digitally downloadable game that involved a lot of their past titles. It's two good things, but it doesn't include a full game of any of them. I don't know how well this will do. It's only on Wii U also, which is another surprising thing. This game seems like it would be perfect for mobile, like for 3DS, and nothing. It's all only on the Wii U. Um, which again is fine. It gives people a reason to pick up and buy games on their Wii U, play their Wii U, play it on the gamepad, what have you. But you have to question, or at least I do, have to question Nintendo's theory with this about how well this is going to do for a system that, sorry to say, isn't really doing that well at all. And I'm afraid by the time that Nintendo does come out with that Legend of Zelda, that Super Smash Bros., all these big name games, a lot of the people who bought into the Wii U right when it came out aren't going to be there anymore. They're going to have sold their system, traded it in, bought a PlayStation, bought an Xbox, bought a PC, moved on. And I mean, I'll be the first to admit, if I were to buy a Wii U today, I'd buy 2 games. Pikmin 3 and The Wonderful 101. That's it. I mean, of course, if I had money to spend, I'd buy all the games for everything. But let's be serious, I don't have that. So again, if I bought a Wii U today, 2 games, and then I'd be done until probably Smash Brothers and Mario Kart. But until Nintendo starts coming out with those system sellers, and once they have those system sellers out, take advantage of the newfound player base with digital downloads, maybe even DLC for certain games, depending on what game it is, like maybe a new character or stage for Smash Brothers, or carts for Mario Kart, or stages from Mario Kart. Absurd ideas that Nintendo just hasn't bothered to implement. Or they might be planning on implementing, but just haven't, because obviously these games aren't out yet and nowhere close to being out yet. But hopefully Nintendo can finally take advantage of what they have coming to them, because we all know these big games are coming. It's just waiting for them to get here. But again, hopefully, Nintendo can turn it around. And the last of my topics here today, the PC. Now, earlier in the video I said I haven't really been playing my PlayStation 4. Part of the reason was, obviously, as I had said earlier, wasn't really that much feeling many of the games that I had on it right now. And I mean, I'm still going to play them, obviously, but moving on. PC is what I've been playing most often. It has the widest array of games that you can get out right now. And admittedly, if you were thinking of getting one of these platforms that I'm talking about today, I'd probably recommend the PC overall. Because not only does it have games that it honestly doesn't really matter how good your PC is, you're going to be able to play 90% of them. But also, a PC does have a higher startup cost. Now, admittedly, you can spend $600 on a PC, custom built, and have it be really good and play a lot of the games that are out today on really high resolutions and things like that, but maybe not a lot of the games after that. But you'll still be able to play them, just maybe not on the highest settings. My recommendation is spend at the very least like anywhere between $1,000 and $1,200, and you can get a PC that'll cover you for years, a couple of years at least. And obviously, a lot of people might be saying, obviously, that's a really high startup cost compared to $500 for an Xbox, $400 for a PlayStation, or $300 for a Wii U. But again, think of it from this perspective. You can go on websites like Steam or UUGGHHH and get an entire library of games for $60. And I'm not talking about games that are not that good, or the just basically things that you wouldn't necessarily spend a lot of time with. You can get a lot of really, really good games, whether they be old or brand new, for really cheap. Whether they be through Steam sales, whether they be through sales on GOG. I mean, hell, GOG.com recently literally gave out for free Fallout 1, Fallout 2, and Fallout Tactics for free. Never mind the fact that they have games like Hotline Miami on sale right now for $2.50. Normally a $10 game. If you don't know Hotline Miami, it was on PlayStation 3 also. Sold really well there, sold really even better on PC. Great game. Really action gory, but really good game. And you can get them all for really cheap. And even the games that do come out on multi-platform, like for example, NBA 2K on release on PC was, I think, $40 compared to $60 for consoles. I mean, once I found that out, I kind of regretted buying it on the PlayStation, but I digress. You can get a lot of great games on PC. I feel like I'm repeating myself here. You can get a lot of great games on PCs for cheap. PCs are not necessarily that gargantuan of a investment to get a hold of, there are websites that you can literally go on today, like cyberpower.com, and they'll build you a custom computer. You can have computers as cheap as, $600-$700, and it'll last you for a few years. The only real downfall of a PC is after those few years, you'll need to either upgrade your parts or even get a whole new PC, depending on how current your current PC is. I mean, mine I've had for a few years, so instead of just upgrading certain parts, I'm probably just going to overhaul the whole new rig. But even that, I knew that was coming. It's generally not something that you don't see coming. If you've had it for a few years, if you've had it for a while, might be time to upgrade. Kind of like getting a next-gen system. But again, these are my opinions on PlayStation, Xbox, Wii U, PC. If you feel like getting any of them, my personal recommendation right now is PC. In the future, probably a PlayStation or an Xbox. If Nintendo finally starts showing up to come out with games that people want to play, hell, throw Nintendo in there too. I plan on getting all of them eventually. I have 2 of them. I only need the Xbox and the Wii U. But if you have a thought or a comment or opinion, feel free to leave it down in the comment section below. Like I said, I'll be linking the Nintendo Direct video down there as well as the article from Kotaku about the YouTube Content ID. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and if you feel you liked the video enough, you can definitely give it a share as well. But thank you guys again for watching, and have a great night.